my beloved child. There is a reason you found this message at this exact moment. Not yesterday. Not tomorrow. Now. What if I told you that somewhere, beyond the noise of ordinary life, a heart is carrying your name in silence? What if the connection you have been sensing, the feeling you could never fully explain, is not your imagination at all? Stay with me, because what is being revealed today may answer a question your soul has been asking for far longer than you realize. For weeks, perhaps even months, subtle signs have been appearing around you. A song that arrives at the perfect time. A dream that lingers long after you wake. A sudden memory of someone you have never truly met, yet somehow feel connected to. You dismissed some of these moments. You explained away others. But deep inside, a quiet voice kept whispering. There is more. And there is. Because unseen connections do not begin when two people meet. They begin long before. Long before the first conversation. Long before the first glance. Long before circumstances bring two paths together. There are bonds formed in places the human eye cannot see. And right now, something extraordinary is unfolding within one of those bonds. At this very moment, someone is thinking about you. Not casually. Not briefly. Not as a passing thought. Their spirit is being drawn toward yours in ways they do not fully understand. They may be trying to focus on their day. Trying to complete ordinary tasks. Trying to convince themselves that life is moving as usual. Yet beneath the surface, your energy continues to appear in their mind like a light they cannot ignore. They do not know why. That is what makes this so powerful. Because some connections arrive before explanations. And some feelings appear before logic can catch them. Have you noticed how your own emotions have shifted recently? Moments when you felt unexpectedly hopeful. Moments when your heart raced without cause. Moments when you sensed that something important was approaching, even though nothing visible had changed. Those feelings were not meaningless. Your soul has been receiving signals before your mind could understand them. There are seasons when heaven works quietly. No announcements. No dramatic signs. Only gentle movements beneath the surface. Like roots growing before a tree appears. Like dawn preparing itself while the world still believes it is night. This is one of those seasons. And the person connected to you is beginning to feel it too. In fact, there is something happening inside them that they have not spoken about to anyone. A question. A longing. A feeling they cannot fully explain. They keep telling themselves to move on. Yet something keeps bringing them back. Again. And again. And again. Because when two souls are moving toward an important meeting, life often begins creating invisible intersections. The timing changes. The circumstances shift. Unexpected opportunities appear. What once seemed impossible slowly becomes inevitable. But here is what most people never realize. The connection itself is not the greatest miracle. What happens before the connection arrives is where the true transformation begins. And that transformation has already started inside you. Think carefully. You are not the same person you were a year ago. Certain lessons changed you. Certain disappointments strengthened you. Certain closed doors redirected you. At the time, some of those experiences felt confusing. Maybe even painful. But what if they were preparing space for something your future needed? What if every delay carried a hidden purpose? What if every unanswered question was leading you toward an answer bigger than you expected? Because there is a detail you have not seen yet. A detail that explains why this connection feels different from anything you have experienced before. And once you understand it, the signs surrounding you will suddenly begin to make sense. But before that revelation appears, there is something you must recognize about the person who cannot stop thinking about you. Something surprising. Something they themselves are only beginning to discover. And when that truth finally reaches the surface, neither of your lives will look the same again. To be continued. The strangest part is not that this person is thinking about you. It is why. Because what is drawing their attention is not something they can easily describe. They cannot point to a photograph. They cannot explain it through logic. They cannot reduce it to coincidence. Yet your presence continues to echo through their thoughts like a melody remembered from another lifetime. And every time they try to ignore it, the feeling returns. Stronger. Clearer. Closer. There is a reason for that. Some connections are built on attraction. Some are built on admiration. But the rarest connections are built on recognition. A recognition that reaches beyond appearances. Beyond circumstances. Beyond distance. It is as if two souls encounter one another and suddenly remember something they never consciously knew. That is the mystery unfolding now. And while you have been searching for answers outside yourself, something important has been happening within. A quiet awakening. Have you noticed it? The way certain things no longer interest you the way they once did. The way your heart has become more selective about where it places its energy. The way old patterns have started falling away. This is not accidental. Growth often arrives disguised as discomfort. Transformation often feels like uncertainty before it feels like clarity. You have been changing, preparing, becoming. And the person connected to you has been experiencing a similar process. Though neither of you may fully realize it yet. In moments of solitude, they have begun questioning things they once accepted without hesitation. They have started seeing through illusions. Started reconsidering old choices. Started sensing that life is leading them somewhere unfamiliar. Some nights they feel excited about the future. Other nights they cannot explain the restlessness inside them. What they do not know is that their soul is responding to a future it can already sense approaching. A future where your paths begin moving toward the same horizon. Yet there is another layer to this story. One that few people ever recognize. Because before meaningful connections appear externally, they often appear energetically. Subtle. Invisible. Almost impossible to prove. And yet undeniably real. Perhaps that explains why certain names have appeared unexpectedly. Why certain dreams felt unusually vivid. Why certain moments seem charged with emotion for no obvious reason. These are not random fragments. They are pieces of a larger picture still being assembled. Imagine standing before a massive stained glass window. From a distance, it looks incomplete. Scattered colors. Disconnected shapes. No clear image. But with every step forward, the fragments begin forming something beautiful. Something intentional. Something that was never chaotic at all. That is where you are now. Standing close enough to sense meaning. Yet not quite far enough to see the entire design. And this is where many people become impatient. They demand certainty. They demand timelines. They demand immediate answers. But some revelations cannot be rushed. A flower blooms according to its season. A sunrise arrives according to its hour. And certain connections unfold according to divine timing. Not human timing. Divine timing. The difference matters more than you know. Because if this connection had appeared earlier, neither of you would have been ready. The lessons were incomplete. The growth was unfinished. The foundations were still forming. But now, something is shifting. Can you feel it? The atmosphere around your life is changing. Opportunities are beginning to rearrange themselves. Conversations are leading in unexpected directions. Old obstacles are losing their power. And behind the scenes, events are moving into place with astonishing precision. Even when it appears that nothing is happening. Especially then. For what looks like silence is often preparation. What looks like delay is often alignment. And what looks like waiting is often movement happening where human eyes cannot yet see. Meanwhile, the person thinking about you is beginning to experience signs of their own. Small signs. Gentle signs. Enough to catch their attention. Enough to make them wonder. Enough to make them ask a question they have never asked before. Why do I keep feeling pulled towards something I cannot explain? The answer is closer than they realize. And so are you. But there is one final barrier still standing between what is and what is coming. A hidden obstacle. Not an enemy. Not a punishment. A lesson. One last lesson that must be understood before the next chapter can fully unfold. And when that lesson becomes clear, the connection that has been quietly building beneath the surface may reveal itself in a way neither of you expected. What happens next changes everything. To be continued.
Here is part 3 of the narration script. There is something remarkable about the final lesson before a blessing arrives. It rarely looks like a blessing. In fact, it often appears as confusion. As waiting. As uncertainty. As a door that refuses to open no matter how many times you knock. And that is why so many people miss the meaning of the season they are in. They mistake preparation for rejection. They mistake silence for absence. They mistake delay for denial. But look closer. Because what feels unfinished in your life may actually be approaching completion. The hidden obstacle standing before you is not what you think it is. It is not distance. It is not timing. It is not circumstance. It is fear. Not the loud kind. Not the obvious kind. The quiet fear that hides beneath hopes you barely admit to yourself. The fear of being disappointed again. The fear of opening your heart and not being understood. The fear of believing in something beautiful only to watch it disappear. And if you are honest, you have carried some of those fears for longer than you realize. You learned to protect yourself. You learned to expect less. You learned to guard certain parts of your heart from being touched. It seemed wise. It seemed safe. Yet walls built to keep pain out can also keep blessings from entering. This is what your soul has been learning. Not how to become stronger. You are already stronger than you know. Not how to survive. You have survived far more than most people realize. The lesson is how to remain open while becoming wise. How to trust without losing yourself. How to hope without demanding guarantees. Because the connection moving toward you requires something that cannot be forced. It requires readiness. And readiness begins inside. Meanwhile, the person who cannot stop thinking about you is facing a lesson of their own. Their challenge is different. Where you have struggled with trust, they have struggled with clarity. Where you have questioned whether to open your heart, they have questioned whether to follow what their heart is telling them. Again and again, life has encouraged them to choose what is predictable. What is comfortable? What is familiar? Yet something inside them keeps reaching toward the unknown. Toward possibility. Toward a future they cannot fully see. And that future keeps leading back to you. Not because fate removes free will. Not because some invisible force controls every choice. But because when two people grow in the direction their souls were meant to grow, their paths naturally begin drawing closer. Like rivers moving toward the same ocean. Like stars gradually aligning in the night sky. Like pieces of a story finally finding their place. And here is the revelation that changes everything. The signs you have been noticing are not primarily about another person. They are about you. Yes, someone is thinking about you. Yes, a connection is developing. Yes, unseen threads are weaving together. But the deeper message has always been about your own transformation. Because the version of you that once doubted your worth is disappearing. The version of you that settled for less is fading. The version of you that questioned whether you were truly seen, truly valued, truly chosen. That version is being replaced. By someone stronger, calmer, wiser, more aligned with who you were always meant to become. And when that shift happens internally, everything begins changing externally. Relationships change. Opportunities change. Decisions change. Even the energy you carry into a room begins changing. People notice it. Situations respond to it. Life reflects it. That is why the next season is so important. Because it is not merely bringing someone closer to you. It is revealing a version of yourself you have not fully met yet. A version that understands their value without needing constant validation. A version that trusts the process even when the path is not fully visible. A version that no longer chases what is meant to arrive naturally. And something tells me, you are much closer to that moment than you think. Closer than you were a month ago. Closer than you were a week ago. Perhaps even closer than you were yesterday. The shift has already begun. The energy is already moving. The pieces are already rearranging themselves. But there is one detail still hidden from view. One detail so unexpected that when it finally reveals itself, you will understand why every delay, every lesson, and every strange sign had a purpose. Because the truth about this connection is far greater than attraction. Far greater than timing. Far greater than coincidence. And in the next chapter, the final piece of the puzzle begins to emerge. A piece that has been waiting in plain sight all along. To be continued. Have you ever searched everywhere for something, only to discover it was near you the entire time? That is the feeling many people experience when the final piece of a divine puzzle is revealed. Not shock alone. Recognition. A sudden understanding that the clues were always present. The signs were always speaking. The path was always forming beneath their feet. They simply could not see it yet. And that brings us to the detail that has remained hidden until now. The person thinking about you is not being drawn only to who you are. They are being drawn to who you are becoming. There is a difference. A profound difference. Many people are attracted to appearances. Some are attracted to potential. But the deepest connections are often formed when two souls begin evolving toward the same truth. Toward the same level of understanding. Toward the same vision of what life can become. That is why certain people enter your life and quickly disappear. They were part of a chapter. Not the whole story. They arrived to teach. To redirect. To awaken. And then their purpose was complete. You may have wondered why some connections never fully worked despite your effort. Why certain doors closed when you desperately wanted them to remain open. Why opportunities dissolved just when they seemed promising. At the time, it felt disappointing. Perhaps even heartbreaking. Yet now a different perspective is beginning to emerge. What if those endings were not losses? What if they were protections? What if life was quietly removing what could not accompany you into the next season? Because not everything that leaves your life is taking something away. Sometimes it is making room. And room has been made. Far more than you realize. The space around your future is changing. The landscape is shifting. The pieces are positioning themselves with extraordinary precision. Even moments that seemed random now carry hidden significance. Think back. There have been conversations you almost did not have. Choices you nearly avoided. Opportunities you almost ignored. Yet somehow, something nudged you forward. Something encouraged you to continue. Something whispered, keep going. That whisper was not meaningless. It was guidance. Quiet guidance. The kind that rarely shouts. The kind that appears through intuition, timing, and unexpected clarity. And now, that guidance is leading toward a moment of convergence. A moment when separate journeys begin intersecting. Not because everything becomes perfect. Not because every challenge disappears, but because alignment begins replacing confusion. The person connected to you is moving through this alignment too. In fact, they are beginning to realize something they once overlooked. They are beginning to understand that what they seek cannot be found through endless searching. It cannot be manufactured. It cannot be forced. It must be recognized. And recognition is getting closer. Every day, the distance between uncertainty and understanding becomes smaller. Every day, the gap between questioning and knowing narrows. Every day, unseen threads tighten. Yet there is still one final mystery. Perhaps the most important mystery of all. Because the true purpose of this connection is not merely companionship. It is awakening. Two people can meet and change each other's schedules. Two people can meet and change each other's plans. But sometimes, two people meet and change each other's lives. Not through dramatic gestures. Not through grand declarations. But through presence. Through growth. Through becoming mirrors that reflect forgotten strengths back to one another. Imagine meeting someone who reminds you of parts of yourself you thought were lost. Someone who sees potential where you once saw limitations. Someone who encourages your spirit to expand rather than shrink. That kind of connection creates ripples far beyond romance. It transforms futures. And that is why this story is unfolding the way it is. Because the goal was never simply to bring two people together. The goal was to prepare two people individually so that when their paths cross, they recognize the value of what stands before them. Preparation first. Recognition second. Transformation third. This has always been the sequence. And now, you stand at the edge of something significant. Not because everything has already happened, but because the momentum has become impossible to ignore. The signs are increasing. The lessons are connecting. The picture is becoming clearer. And soon, very soon, a realization will emerge that changes the way you understand every moment that led you here. A realization so powerful that you will no longer ask whether the connection is real. You will ask why it took you so long to see what was being revealed all along. Because the next chapter holds the answer to the question your heart has been quietly carrying from the very beginning. And once that answer arrives, nothing will ever look the same again. To be continued. Here is part 5 of the narration script. There comes a moment in every divine story when the waiting begins to make sense. Not all at once. Not in a dramatic flash. But like the first light of dawn touching a dark horizon. Slowly. Gently. Inevitably. And that moment may be closer than you think. For so long, you believed the journey was about finding someone. Finding the right person. Finding the right opportunity. Finding the missing piece. But now a deeper truth is beginning to emerge. You were never truly searching for another soul. You were searching for confirmation. Confirmation that your heart had not hoped in vain. Confirmation that your growth had meaning. Confirmation that the unseen guidance you felt was leading somewhere real. And today, that confirmation is arriving. Not as a final answer, but as a revelation. The revelation is this. Nothing you have experienced has been wasted. Not the disappointments. Not the detours. Not the seasons when it seemed as though nothing was moving. Every chapter has been contributing to something larger than itself. Every challenge has been shaping wisdom. Every delay has been strengthening foundations. Every unanswered question has been preparing you for a greater understanding. And now, when you look back, the pieces begin connecting. The lesson that taught patience. The loss that taught self-worth. The silence that taught trust. The uncertainty that taught resilience. What once appeared disconnected now forms a pattern. A pattern that has been guiding you toward this moment all along. Meanwhile, the person thinking about you is experiencing their own awakening. Without realizing it, they have been walking toward many of the same lessons. Different circumstances. Different experiences. Different paths. Yet strangely similar growth. And that is what makes this connection unique. It is not simply about two people meeting. It is about two journeys reaching a point of alignment. Two stories arriving at the same chapter from different directions. Two hearts becoming ready at nearly the same time. That timing matters. More than most people understand. Because readiness creates possibilities that impatience never could. And something within you already senses this. That is why certain fears no longer hold the same power. That is why old wounds are beginning to heal. That is why hope feels different now. More mature. More grounded. Less desperate. More certain. You are no longer hoping from a place of lack. You are beginning to hope from a place of knowing. Knowing that what is meant for you does not require constant chasing. Knowing that what aligns with your path arrives with greater ease than force. Knowing that divine timing is not punishment. It is protection. And here is the truth that changes everything. The soulmate you have been wondering about is not completing you. You were never incomplete. Read that again within your spirit. You were never incomplete. The connection forming around you is not arriving to fill a void. It is arriving to amplify what has already been growing inside you. To share joy. To expand purpose. To reflect strength. To encourage growth. That is why the preparation mattered so much. Because healthy connections are not built from emptiness. They are built from wholeness. And wholeness is exactly what has been developing within you. Even during the moments when you doubted it. Even during the days when progress felt invisible. Even during the nights when answers seemed far away. Growth was happening. Alignment was happening. Preparation was happening. And now, a threshold is approaching. A moment when intuition becomes clarity. When signs become understanding. When faith becomes recognition. You may not know the exact day. You may not know the exact circumstance. But your soul already feels the movement. It already senses the shift. It already knows that a new chapter is beginning to unfold. The remarkable thing is that this chapter will not arrive with the noise you expect. It will arrive with a feeling. A certainty. A deep inner knowing that settles over your heart and quietly says, "This is why. This is why the waiting happened. This is why the lessons came. This is why the path unfolded the way it did." And when that realization fully arrives, you will discover that the greatest miracle was never that someone was thinking about you. The greatest miracle was that through every twist, every question, and every season of becoming, you never stopped moving toward the person you were destined to be. And that destiny is now closer than ever before. The story is only beginning.